Hi everybody, and welcome to Garden Style. So today is the big reveal of my decision as to whether to do a trellis or an obelisk in the garden. For those of you who tuned in to my last video, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And as soon as I show you what the big reveal is, then I'm also going to cover 4 perennials that are fantastic in the heat. So let's get started. Okay, here we go. So I decided to do a trellis behind the bird bath, and as you can see, it has a sun motif to it to kind of mimic the bird bath that is sitting down below. So I have tucked in one of the potato vines behind it to get it going, and look at this. When I put them in, they were about 6, maybe 7 inches high. He's already about 2 feet high and was not affected by the heat. So he's already leaning that direction, and we'll start tying him up as soon as he's ready. But the big thing for me was how it was going to attach to the house. And this is what we did. You see that little eye hook there? And I've got another one on the other side, and I have 2 more down below, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is paint those black. And then later on, when I want to go and repaint the house, I can just give it a little lift above those hooks and I can lean it forward. Because keep in mind, the vine's going to be attached to it still. And I'll just be able to lean that forward, get that area painted, and be able to hang it right back up where it's supposed to go. So one last finishing touch, and that is to get these hooks painted black so they're not as obvious sitting there. But I just left them the way they were so I could show you what I did. And then I decided to do 2 obelisks on either side. So here's one of them here, and the vines are already going crazy. They drop their flowers right after the heat wave, which is what plants do when it gets so warm out. But it is just about ready to start tying it up, and it can just work its way up all the way to the top. And that is what I did on the other side as well. Because I'm a true believer in 3s, and the shadows here are pretty bad because of the sun currently and the way it's shining. But that's what this bed gets. It gets, a lot of sun on this side. But I also wanted to show you how I arranged the plants in here. I'm a true believer in triangles. So you have a plant here. You've got the asters in the front, and I'm about to cover those here a little bit later on in the video here. But I chose the asters because they stay low, and they are all along the front here, about 3 or 4 of them. And I wanted to give everybody plenty of room because I am guilty of overplanting and having to move plants later. So I'm hoping this is a one-time deal. And then we have the escalonias here. But you'll notice everything is in a triangle to each other. So as I step back, I'm going to get over here in the shade where you can see better. There you go. There's your tall plant. One towards the front in the middle, one towards the front. But you see how they're all set in like triangles from each other? And that's a great way to start pre-planting your beds. And make sure they have plenty of space to grow in. So as I get you the whole picture here, see here, I'll pan out. You'll see how everything is laid out. And now I've got the trellis and the 2 obelisks in a set of 3. Because 3 is always better than 2 or 4. Always better to go in odd numbers rather than even. And now there's plenty of room. And then I put in this fantastic trim. This is made from recycled rubber. It is very easy to work with, so I could separate the bark from the gravel here in the path. And I didn't want anything real obtrusive. And all I do is nail it down into the ground. It is so easy. So I just had to set the wire. I'm looking here to where they have these big spikes that go down on the inside, and they tack down in there. So you tack them down really tight. And that's all there is to it. And I just drew a string so I could make sure it was in a nice straight line. And for those of us who live alone and don't have anyone here to help us, this is a great alternative to putting down blocks or bricks or anything that just creates, a lot of labor. And now I'm going to be putting in some fresh gravel. So you won't see the edge quite as much, but it'll be there just enough to keep the two mediums separate from each other. And then last but not least, in about a month, a big arbor is going to go right here at the front entrance. That you see the two rose pots right now, they're kind of marking where it's going to go. And needless to say, it's on back order. We've had a lot of shipping problems this year with things getting here on time. And then I've chosen some pots here. These are new. And this is a very lightweight material, and it's really hard to see here in this video, I think, because it's so dark, but they got a real pretty feathery texture to the outsides of them. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with them, but I thought they were pretty nonetheless. And I may just put one on either side of the gate, and then a little further down on the new arbor when it comes in. So there's the big reveal. I know, not too terribly exciting until those vines get going. But for me it's exciting because this side of the house has stayed bare with just gravel under it for 3 or 4 years after the canopy finally collapsed over here on this side. And I will not lie to you, the ground over here was hard as a rock for at least the first 6 inches, so it took a lot of painstaking shoveling and chipping away until I got down about 6 inches, and then the soil got really soft as I got closer to the foundation. So there you go, another project almost complete, but it sure looks a heck of a lot better than straight up gravel and weeds. And now, you see this stack right here? Yep, that's the next project. I inherited these with the house, and I'm getting ready to lay those down the center of the path here, going to the back gate. And I'm probably going to alternate them. So I'll keep you up to date and let you know when that part of the project is done. But always in baby steps, one thing at a time. All right, let's go talk about some heat-loving perennials. Hi everybody, Debbie here with Garden Style. So my subject today is going to be Beat the Heat, and I'm going to introduce you to 3 or 4 perennial plants that do extremely well in the heat and are pretty well behaved. So the very first one I'm going to introduce you to is Starshine Aster. And this is one of the plants that you saw in my narrow plant garden that I just introduced you to. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about it and why I chose it for that particular spot. So asters are a huge family of plants, and you can get them in all different heights. This one just happens to stay very low. It only gets about 18 to 24 inches high, and it starts blooming right about now. It starts blooming about the end of June, and it will continue its bloom all the way until the first frost, which is why I love them so. Now I chose it to go in that narrow bed because it does stay short. And 18 to 24 inches high, about 2 feet high, and just about as wide. And it's a nice mounding plant. And they're just a very neat looking plant, which is another reason that I purchased it. It's also very hardy. These are hardy from zone 4 to zone 9. So that's like minus 30 degrees when it's cold. It's also extremely drought tolerant. And it doesn't seem to mind the heat at all. You saw the condition of my plants that I put in about a week before we had our big heat wave here in the Northwest, and they look fantastic. And they didn't even blink an eye, and they were new. They were brand new plantings. Even though I kept them well watered, knowing full well that this heat wave was coming, they did very well. So I'm encouraged by that. I had never grown them before. I've grown all different types of asters, from the kind that get 36 to 40 inches tall to the little mounding purple asters and pink ones that you see in the fall mostly. But I really like this one because it starts blooming right now, and it will continue all the way until the first frost. So it's very long blooming. And very compact, and just a beautiful mounding type plant for the front of the border. So you get a lot of mileage out of it. The bees love it. I was looking here to see if it was deer resistant at all, because I know I get some questions from you folks about that. It's not saying anything here on the tag about it being deer resistant, so something to keep in mind. But it does attract butterflies, bees, ladybugs, and it also has a really nice fall color to its foliage in the fall when it starts to die back. So something else to look forward to later on in the season. I also like the fact that it's white. It'll go with anything. And it's just a nice place for the eye to rest when you have a lot going on in the garden. So I'm going to test these out this year, and I'm going to see how I like their performance. And if I really like them, I'm going to plan on a very large border of them next spring and get some more of these in, because I truly need something to just finish off the edges that will throw out some more blooms until fall. So there you go. Aster Starshine is the name of it, in case I forgot to mention that to you. I get to talking after a while and you forget, did I mention that or not? So yes, very nice perennial. Okay, so another perennial I wanted to talk about, and a lot of you are probably very, very familiar with these, and that is yarrows. This is Achillea millefolium, and this particular variety is called Strawberry Seduction. And I wanted to try these out this year. You know, most of your yarrows that are native anyway, here to the US, Europe, and Asia, they started out as white. Well, they have hybridized these guys, so now you get them in all kinds of colors. Every shade of yellow, orange, salmon color, peaches, and now we're finally getting into cranberries and reds. And this one has more of a cranberry color, even though it's kind of hard to tell. But what I liked about them is they come out in this deep cranberry color. I actually have two plants here, so let me see. This one has a tendency to show a little more of that color. So you can see there's a little more of the cranberry color in there. But as they start to get older, then they fade into like a tinted red, and there's actually some yellow mixed in here as well. So it's kind of multicolored. So I thought that was really interesting. But I love the yarrows because they are another one that are extremely drought tolerant and do very well in high heat. That one just doesn't want to stay standing. We'll lay them down. So yeah, Strawberry Seduction Achillea, or yarrow, are fantastic out in a full sun garden, hardy from zone 3 to zone 9. This particular variety only gets about 32 inches high and just about as wide. They'll start making a big clump out in the garden and make a really nice statement. Now, they will do their first flush usually towards the end of June, beginning of July, where they just go berserk, and you just see a huge batch of them that show up. But after that, they'll start to slow down. But what you can do to continue the bloom even longer is start deadheading them. Take out some of the dead flowers and just let them continue to keep sending up new ones. And that's not a problem with me because I love to use them in flower arrangements. They're just a neat texture. They got a really neat shape to the flower, and you can use them as a fresh flower or even dried. They have a tendency to hang on to their color just enough so you can use them in dried arrangements. So that's another one that's extremely drought tolerant and doesn't require a whole lot of watering during the summertime once it's established. So Strawberry Seduction is the name of that one. And then I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Russian sage, but I wanted to introduce this particular variety to you. They start blooming right about now, as we're here in July. And this is the kind of perennial that you would find on the side of the freeway. That just tells you how hardy they are once they get established and they like where it is they're planted. Now, they require really good drainage, especially up here in the Northwest where we get so much water. So plant them near a slope or on a slope, or even mound them up a little bit so they're a little bit higher than ground level to ensure that they get really good drainage, because they despise wet feet. Very much like a lavender plant. You can almost treat them the same way. But this particular variety is called Denim and Lace. And it's another proven winners type of perennial. So you know it's going to be outstanding and it's going to perform well in the garden. But the main thing I liked about this one is it doesn't get real high. A lot of your Russian sages, especially some of the originals, can get as high as 4 feet if you let them. This one gets 28 to about 32 inches high. So it's great in the mid section of the border. And also another extremely hardy perennial from zone 4 to zone 9. It's very deer resistant because it is a sage. It has a scent to it. And you'll find that a lot of your herbs, like sages, mints, lavender, things that have a scent to them, the deer have a tendency to leave those alone. They don't like the smell like we do. So it's a very good performing plant, if I could spit that out. Of course, it's in full sun, And this is another one that's fantastic in flower arrangements. You can start to cut them and you can use them fresh or dried. Either way, they make a fantastic texture in a flower arrangement. So it's just a great way to reuse them while they're out in the garden. And my favorite way to plant these is in mass. So you have a drift, and from a distance it just looks like this beautiful purple haze throughout the garden. But I was enamored with this new variety, and I'm going to find a nice little spot for it out here in the garden and give it a test run and see what I think. And of course, let you guys know a little later how it performed. But this particular variety is just now starting to get its blooms on it and get that purple, that beautiful misty blue purple color to it. And that's why I really like them. So Perovskia is the botanical name for it, denim and lace, Russian sage. So there's another one that does very well in the sun and the heat. And then I have another one here, and this one you might not be as familiar with, but I have always had extremely good luck with these. And this is Agastache, or hummingbird mint. And let me get it out in front of my face. But the hummingbirds really do love these plants. Now I've seen these growing in Colorado and some of the Midwestern states, so it'll give you a pretty good idea just how hardy these plants can be. This particular variety is hardy down to zone 6, all the way to zone 8, extremely drought tolerant and very long blooming, and I can attest to that. I've got the blue boa version sitting in my garden, which I'll flash a picture of there for you. And that's just a deep blue purple color, and it just blooms its little heart out until the first frost. So it's super easy to take care of that way. But this one that I'm showing to you today is called Mexican Giant Hyssop. And it attracts all the pollinators, your bees, your butterflies, ladybugs, very deer resistant, and it's fragrant. So yeah, flowers carry a little bit of fragrance to them. So this particular plant does get tall, and I need some tall sitting in my perennial bed. He's going to sit towards the back a little bit, but he'll get about 3 to 4 feet high and about 2 to 3 feet wide and just make these beautiful clumps. And this is another one where you can't buy just one plant. You got to buy at least 3 or 5 or 7 and plant them in groups. And by the time they get to blooming, and you can see there's all kinds of buds on this one here, they're just beautiful as you stand back from the garden. Really pretty. So crimson pink-like blooms on 3 to 4 foot stalks. They kind of have a lemon-scented foliage to them, which is kind of neat. And of course the hummingbirds, you can't keep them away from it. They are buzzing around my garden all day long when these things are in bloom. And some good companion plants to go with these are plants like Rudbeckia, the yarrows that I just showed you, blue oatgrass, senecios, nepitas. Any of the plants that I introduced you to today would be great companions for this plant, as they all require some of the same water requirements, which isn't much by the time they get established. So Agastache, or hummingbird mint, is another name for that one. And I just wanted to introduce this to you because it is a really pretty perennial. All right, you guys, so there's some new introductions for you. Just keep buzzing out with these heat-loving perennials. And what I want to do for the next video is cover 3 or 4 more perennials. They aren't necessarily heat tolerant, but they're fantastic for texture. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that one. All right, you guys, of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the description box down below. And with as busy as we have been, things are finally calming down, so I try really hard to answer you folks back, or at least give you a thumbs up or a like to let you know that yes, I am reading your comments. It's hard to just answer everybody back because I get so many of them, but I certainly do my best. Okay. Hope your summer is going as fantastic as ours is. It's a nice, cool 72 degrees today. It's like perfect weather. So good timing to get these in the ground before it starts to warm up again this coming weekend. Okay, hope you all are having a great summer, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.